Hello, I'm Brian Durham, Professional Services Engineer handling client deployments, and have been with Netreo for a little over 7 months. Prior to coming to Netreo, I worked for an MSP that utilizes Netreo as their monitoring platform, where I led the network monitoring team. In this video, I will be discussing Netreo's AIOps Autopilot module. If you have any questions during the session, I'm available in the live chat to answer them. You can also reach out to me in the Nuggets platform with any questions. Autopilot can be found under the administration menu, and you have to have super admin rights to be able to access it. AIOps Autopilot utilizes a series of plugins to scan for specific administrative configuration issues and automatically fix them. It runs every night around midnight, and the exact time depends on the number of monitored devices. Autopilot breaks down into 5 main modules, covering solution setup, such as DNS, NTP, or mail server issues, environmental integration issues like bad credentials, best practices in device organization and consistent configuration, data collection, ensuring that appropriate data is being collected for different device types, threshold baselines to ensure that thresholds are set to the most appropriate levels to avoid excess alerts and notification fatigue. Each module doesn't run every night, but within a 7-day period, all the modules are run, and each module can be turned on or off at any time. Autopilot page is broken down into 3 main tabs: the Summary tab, the Findings tab, and the Settings tab. Starting with the Summary tab, as the name implies, the Summary tab is going to provide you with a summary of everything that is happening within Autopilot. You have 3 main gauge graphs titled Observe, Analyze, and Act. There is also a Findings by Model category section at the bottom of the page. Any of the active data in the graphs is clickable and will redirect you to the Findings page. The Observe graph displays the total number of items scanned and total number of findings identified. The Analyze graph displays the currently active findings and number of remedies identified for those findings, and if there are any issues that have been identified but require additional attention. The Act graph displays the total number of issues that were resolved and breaks down whether they were resolved automatically or manually. The Findings by Category section at the bottom of the page displays a breakdown of the active and corrected issues for each model category. Model categories refer to data on the Settings tab. Moving on to the Findings tab. There are 2 pages. The Finding Sources page shows active findings, and the Activity Log page shows resolved findings and findings for certain modules that Autopilot has no way to access. The Finding Source page displays all of Autopilot's active findings as cards. Each card displays a single finding: the device name, current host status, the issue, the module that identified the issue, and whether or not the issue can be automatically resolved are all displayed. If a finding can be resolved automatically, but the settings don't allow it to be, the card will list can be addressed. If the finding can't be fixed automatically, the card will list needs review. If you click on a card on the Finding Source page, you will select the card and get an expanded view with additional details about the finding. You can select multiple cards, which allows you to apply a fix to multiple findings at once. Notice that on the expanded tab, we've got the additional information. You've got IP address information for the host, how it is set, the device type. This is a ping-only device. It's in the New Devices category, the site, its uptime information. Here's the device name, its current status. If provided, the last reboot time, current issues, the module that identified the issue, a detailed explanation of the issue, and the resolution of the issue. Cards on the activity log page don't have the expanded view. If you click select multiple cards, you notice we get the truncated listing for each card, and you have the ability to apply resolutions to multiple cards at one time. In the expanded view, like I said, you have the option to remediate, and those remediations depend on the settings that are applied on the settings page for each related model. If you choose to fix the finding, the listed action will be taken. So on a single card, you can see the listed action that will be taken. If you choose to ignore the finding, the device will be added to a functional group that is referenced on the settings page. Cards can be filtered using the on-screen options or can be searched. The search function is an active search or a real-time search, meaning it filters the displayed data as you type. You don't have to enter the enter key to activate the search. The search is checking all of the data on the expanded card, not just what is displayed in the overview card. To filter the cards, there are issue status buttons across the top of the screen and a model categories drop-down menu. Clicking on an issue status button activates the filter, and clicking on it again deactivates the filter. The currently applied filters are displayed at the center of the screen, as well as a clear filter button. The drop-down menu lists the models from the settings screen that the displayed cards fall into. Selecting a category will filter the selected model category and deselect the others. You can select multiple categories from the drop-down at one time. Let's use the activity log to display this. There's more data. So these are the models that the cards fall into, and we can select them, and it's going to filter on those models. We can select multiple, and we can clear them. On the activity log page, there's an additional set of timeline buttons that allow you to filter the age of the displayed findings. This is historical data, so there are the additional filters on the timeline of the historical data. Moving on to the settings tab. The settings tab is where remedy timelines and actions are specified. At the top of the screen, under the preferences section, the drop-down sets the time period for a finding to be active before Autopilot applies a remedy. If never is selected, all remedies will have to be manually applied. As you can see, we've got never, 1 day, 7 days, or 30 days. This is how long each finding will be active before Autopilot applies the below listed resolutions. Below that, we've got the model categories. If you click the plus signs, they will expand. All of these were referenced on the summary and findings tabs. Here you can enable or disable remedies. You can also set whether you want to be able to manually apply a remedy or not. This can be set for an entire category or can be set on individual checks. As you can see on the fixings menu, we've got manual, automatic, or disabled. In the categories with additional models, you've got model specific also. So this in a category at the top will set for all of the models below it, or if you set model specific, then the settings for each model will be applied. If the fixing drop-down is set to disabled, that means that you will not be able to manually apply a remedy, and the remedy will be automatically applied utilizing the time frame selected at the top of the screen. Setting the fixing drop-down to disabled does not disable the action taken on that model. To disable actions on a model, you'll have to toggle the enabled button to the off position. So disabling this field only determines how you can manually affect each finding. Setting this to disabled simply means that you cannot manually affect the finding. If you want to disable a model completely, you have to turn the enabled button to the off position. Exclusions to category settings are done via functional group. This goes back to the findings page, to the cards. If in the expanded view, if you were to click ignore, ignoring this finding is going to take this device and add it to a functional group that is going to be listed into the related models exclusion group. Any changes that are made on the settings page will take effect when you click the Save Changes button. Now to go over the model categories. The model categories, these are the actual checks that are being done by Autopilot. And we'll start with the baselines. Under baselines, you've got threshold baseline check. This compares the currently set threshold to the performance data that is being received via polling and tunes that threshold to provide more effective alerting for the data that's being received. For instance, if you have an interface bandwidth threshold set to 75% and the interface is consistently operating above that 75%, Autopilot will make micro adjustments to set the threshold above the normal performance of the interface. Next, you've got best practices. Under best practices, you have the auto configuration rule mismatch. This looks for devices whose monitored configuration does not match the set auto configuration rules. An example would be having an auto configuration rule that puts all Windows servers in a specific Windows Server category. If you moved a Windows Server out of the Windows Server category into a database server category, Autopilot would move the server back to the Windows Server category because auto configuration rules say that's where it belongs. You would have to add that specific server to a functional group and add the functional group to the exclusion list so it wouldn't be continually moved back and forth. Moved back every time you changed it. Device template status verifies that templating is enabled for all monitored devices. If a device has templating disabled, Autopilot enables it. In this instance, if you had a single device that was receiving all of its templates, but you wanted to use different credentials on that device and you disabled templating, Autopilot would find that device and re-enable templating. So again, you would have to add the device to a functional group and add that to the exclusions. Host alert contacts present. Checks for a host alert contact on each device. If there is no host alert found, Autopilot is going to apply all of the templates for that device to set a host alert contact. Missing device organization information identifies any device that is not assigned a site, category, or strategic group and runs the auto configuration rules against the device to get it to the correct site, category, or strategic group. Under data collectors, you have all missing basic polling data, checks performance data of all devices against their respective device type. The findings card will list the number of missing performance statistics. So by device type, we set specific polling parameters to receive performance metrics. If there are performance metrics that are missing, it would be reported here. Device type check compares the data provided from the polling of a monitored device to the device type that is currently assigned. If the data does not match, Autopilot will set the device to the correct device type. We're using SNMP data received from the device to check and see what the device is broadcasting that it is. If what the device is telling us that it is doesn't match what we have set, then Autopilot is going to reset the device to what the device is broadcasting via SNMP. Interface speed check looks for missing interface bandwidth speeds. If a device is missing 5 or more interface speeds, Autopilot tries to determine and set the interface speed using the polling data and the information in the Netreo database. Missing basic polling data verifies all performance data assigned by device type is being collected for servers. If there is expected performance data missing, stored credentials will be tested and working credentials will be identified. This is like the all missing basic polling data, but this is specifically for servers. NetFlow validity check validates that any device set as a traffic flow exporter has recent traffic flow data. If no traffic data has been received in the last 24 hours, Autopilot starts a repoll of the device. Selected polling data missing verifies that all performance data assigned by template is being collected for servers. If there is expected performance data missing, stored credentials will be tested and working credentials be identified. Autopilot isn't fixing the credentials in these cases. It is reporting it via the activity log on the related card. syslog or SNMP track validity check. It checks for all active devices set as log exporters for log data within the last 24 hours. If no log data has been received, Autopilot will set the device for immediate repull. This is the same as the NetFlow validity check, only this is for syslogs and SNMP tracks. Unlogged template threshold detected reports any device threshold that is set by a template but has been manually unlocked. In this case, we'll use a Cisco switch as an example. If you've got by template interface bandwidth set, and you go into one of your switches and you go to this specific interface and unlock that interface's bandwidth threshold to change it, that is going to be reported here. Under environmental integrations, we've got the device credential check. On that same Cisco switch, if the credentials that we have set to do configuration backup are bad credentials, that will generate an authentication service check alert. If that authentication service check alert is seen, the templated credentials are going to be tested. And if they're not working, then Autopilot is going to check the templates for working credentials. And if working credentials are found, Autopilot will change the credentials set to the device to the working credentials. If there are no working credentials, that will be posted in the activity log on the card. Under solution setup, we've got the DNS server incorrect. That verifies that DNS server that is configured is valid and functioning. If the DNS configuration is incorrect, Autopilot will look for a functioning DNS server. If one is found, the DNS configuration will be changed. If one isn't found, that information will be posted on the card in the activity log. NTP server incorrect is the same as the DNS server check, only for the NTP server. So it's going to test the NTP server, see if it's valid and functioning. If it is not valid, then Autopilot will go out and look for the functioning NTP server. If one is found, the configuration, the NTP configuration will be changed. If not, that will be reported in the activity log. And finally, we've got the SNMP mail delivery problem. This checks the mail log for bounce errors over the last 24 hours. If any bounce errors are found, that information is going to be posted in the activity log. In closing, AIOps Autopilot can be used to automate the resolution to many common issues found in a monitoring configuration. This will reduce the number of performance-based critical alerts that are seen and reduce the likelihood of notification fatigue. If you have any questions, please post them in the live chat or reach out to me in the Nugget platform. Thank you and have a great day.
Come on.